Hello and welcome to lesson 4 of week 2. In this lesson, we are going to look at conditional statements in JavaScript. My name is Mildred. When we talk about conditional statements, we want to make our program make decisions and execute different code depending on how it satisfies a condition. Alright, so in JavaScript, we use the if statement for condition, just like in English language when you say if something is a conditional statement. So what happens depends on if the statement is true or if the statement is false. So the statement is only going to run if the condition specified is true, or if we want to do it if the condition is false. So let's say, for instance, we have a page where we want to check the age of the user and we don't want to allow certain functionalities if the person is not an adult. So let's say let age is equal to 18, for instance, right? And then we can now have a condition and say if. So we use the if statement like this, use the if keyword, a pair of parentheses, then a pair of curly braces. Within the parentheses, you want to put your condition. Now we looked at the different operators that we have, and we have comparison operators that we use to compare two things. So we want to compare the age that is supplied. If this age is greater or equal to 18, we want to do something, and what we'll do is, let's say we'll log to the console to say console.log, let's say access granted, right, like this. So this checks if the value held in the variable age is 18 or is greater than 18. We want to say access granted. So let's go to our console and we see access granted. If we change that value to be 17, nothing is going to happen because we did not tell it what to do if that is not the case. So we have another block we call the else block, which we use to specify what will happen if the if condition is not satisfied. And so in the else block, we can say else console.log. So we can say else console.log and we'll say access denied. All right. So every time a value is specified, there's always going to be a response that is logged, access denied. So you can say we can use the if statement by itself and we can couple it with the else statement. But what now happens when we have several conditions to check and we want to check these conditions in order? Let's say we have 3 or 4 conditions to check and we want to say we are grading a script and we say if the person's grade is greater or equal to 90, give A, and then we want to check if it's not greater or equal to 90, we want to check what is it. Is it less than 90? Do we have another range? If it is greater than 85 and less than 90, we want to give B. So you want to have different layers of if statements before the else, but you want it so that once it satisfies one condition, you should not check the rest. You should just exit the block, display what it needs to display or do what it needs to do and exit that conditional statement. So what you do is using another statement called else if. So you specify another condition. So you can have multiple else if before you have the else statement at the end to say something else. So let's say we're in the terms of grades. So we say let's use score, right? And we'll say this score is 75. We want to have maybe 3 conditions and say if score is greater or equal to 90, we want to say grade equal to A. Let's say grade A, like this. Else if we put another condition, score is, so we want to say if it is less than 90 but greater than or equal to 85, we want to say grade B, something like that. All right, then check if it is greater or equal to 85, right? So if the score is less than 90, so we have the different operators that we use in JavaScript. We talked about comparison operator in last week's lesson. So we want to combine this and you know we use double ampersand. You can refer to last week's lesson to say if the score is less than 90 and the score is greater or equal to 85, you want to say B. So this is the correct syntax to compare two things. And when you say and, it means that both conditions must be satisfied. You don't say or. Or means any one of the conditions satisfies, it does this. And so when you refresh our page, it's failed because this condition is less than 90 or is not greater or equal to 85, is 75. But when we say this is 85, it will give us grade B, and when we say, for instance, this is 95, it will give us grade A, like that. Any other thing that is outside of the condition, let's say 80, it will give us failed here because we don't have a grade for those. We said any other thing that is not 85 and above will have a failed there. So this is how we do multiple if statements, or we check multiple conditions in JavaScript. Now when we have many conditions, let's say we want to do A to F, and there are many else if, there are other ways we can do that. We can use the switch statement to achieve the same thing. So instead of having this, we can change to switch. Let's say for instance we are using day of the week. For instance, I'll say let day is equal to 3, right? We want to have multiple conditions, and let's create a function and to illustrate this. So let's say function get day name. So we want to get the name of the day, and this function will take the day value. Okay, so now instead of having multiple if and say if 1 Sunday, if 2 Monday, Tuesday, like that, we want to use the switch statement within switch, and in a pair of parentheses you pass the variable that you want to, or that holds the value that you want to compare. So, and then you have a pair of curly brace. Within this curly brace you will now write the first case. So the case now is case 1. So if 1 was applied, what do we want to do? We want to return, let's say we want to start from Monday, so we'll say Monday, right? And then when it is Monday, you want to break out of this. You don't want it to be infinite and go through every case. But since we are using a return statement, we don't need break. In the event that this is not return, you will break, right? So now case 2, we want to return Tuesday, and then case 3, you want to return Wednesday, like that. Then case 4, you want to return Thursday, right? So we are returning because we are doing this within a function. If this were not a function, you will need to have a break statement if it's not a return. And so anything that is not for, we want to have a default. So you say default, and so this will just provide a catch-all if none of this case is satisfied, and you want to return something when it starts, let's say unknown day, right? So you have unknown day, and then you are that's what you are returning here, and then we can now call this function. Let's say outside of this we say console.log, and then we want to call the function get day name, and we put the day of the week that we have there, and what we have there is 3, which means it will fall on Wednesday when we refresh there. If we change the day to 4, it will give us Thursday, and if we put the day to the day of the week that is not specified 0, it will tell us unknown day, like that there. So this is how we use switch statements, and we provide cases instead of having if else statements like that. We have something we call a ternary operator that we use as a shorthand for conditional statements. Let's say we have a traffic sign, red is stop, green is go. Let's simulate that. We have colors, right? And let's say this color we'll say is equal to red. So we're just providing a value that we're going to use later. Now for ternary operator, we want to look at the status, if it is go or stop. Normally we'll say if status is equal to, or if color is equal to red, we'll set status to stop, and if it is not red, we'll set it to go or something like that. So let's create another variable, let status, and we'll say is equal to. Now we want to use a ternary operator. Instead of the if else statement, in a pair of parentheses, we want to put the condition first. So when the color is equal to red, we want to do something. So what we do is, if it is equal to red, we use a question mark. So this is how we do ternary operator, and we'll specify what we want to do when it is red. We'll say stop, and then we use a colon to provide the alternative if it is not red. So we'll say go. So this is ternary operator. This just means if color is equal to red, display stop. If it is not red, display go, like that. And so when we say console.log status, we have red there, so definitely we will get stop printed to the console. So we have red is not defined. Let's look there. So if color is equal to red, stop, and if not, go. So the red here is not a value, we put it like is a variable that is not defined. So when we refresh now, we see stop. And when we come here and we change the color, let's say yellow, it says go, because we did not specify any alternative after stop or go. So this is how we use the ternary operator. So this is the same thing for the if else, but we use a shorthand. We use a question mark to put the condition if it satisfies, and the colon, the condition if it doesn't satisfy. In a pair of parentheses, the condition. Okay, and so this is how we use ternary operator. We can have a nested conditional statement where we have an if statement, and within the if statement we have other if statements. For instance, let's say we're creating an authentication system, and we'll say, let's say let user equal to admin, for instance, like this, and we want to see if this user is logged in or is active. So let's say let is active, like this, equal to true. Let's just do something close to real world. So let's say active equal to true. So we want to have a nested conditional statement. So we'll say if user is equal to admin. So we want to see if the user is an admin user. We want to do something. So within this, we can now check again. If the user is admin, we want to check after that if the user is active. So we'll say if is active, like this. So if it's active, we want to do something. So maybe we'll say console.log admin access is granted. Okay, let's say console.log admin access is granted, and then we can now put an else condition here, and then we say console.log access denied, something like that. So we can see how we nested this statement. So we have an if statement, and within the if statement we have an if else statement again. So this is nesting. But so we now have these variables we declare outside, and then when we come here we will see admin access is granted because the user is admin, the active is true. If the user is not admin, nothing is going to happen, right? Because we did not specify an alternative here. We're just looking at what nesting is all about. So now that you have an idea of what a conditional statement is, we are going to use this in our software development project. Next week we are going to go deeper to look at the different data types in more details. Thank you, and see you next week.